Very good. We'll start the meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you to all those people who've come tonight. Our gallery is a little more full than usual, which is great to see that people have got an interest in what happens at local government level. I think we've got all our IT concerns sorted, and so I'll hand over to the CEO at this point to commence the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video recording is focused on councillors and staff, while audio from the entire room is captured. And you can hear the audio playing on my particular device just there. By speaking during question time or at any time, you consent to your voice and any comments you make being recorded. The entire recording will be streamed live on the internet, on Council's website and YouTube, and will also be made available online after the meeting. This recording of meetings is to improve access and transparency of Council decision making for all of our community. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. CEO. I'll just ask if you do have mobile devices that they are turned off or silent, please. Thank you, Dave. If we go on to the acknowledgement, traditional custodians, recognition of all people.
The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we are now on. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Councillor Farrell. Seconder, please. Councillor Von Arx, thank you. All those in favour? Against? None? Carried. Thank you. Apologies. Councillor Tony Keeble is away at the moment. He's an apology. And Director of Assets Charlie Bird is also on leave, and I welcome Rory Hazeldean, the Acting Director of Assets. Thanks for coming tonight, Rory. We try not to give you too much of a hard time when you're new position. We'll try. Obituaries and congratulations.
Yes.
Councillor Farrell.
I would particularly like to thank Jenny Corser and the Alpine Cycle Club for doing an absolutely sterling job at the Mountain Bike Superoo Championships. What an event. It was just fantastic. So congratulations to all of you who participated in that, and it was a brilliant time. That's all.
Thank you. Any further?
Yes.
Councillor Pearce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to congratulate, maybe it's not quite the right spot, but I think it's pretty okay. Just congratulate a couple of businesses in our area, and whilst I'm saying that, I see the proprietors of Cloud9 and Cinema Bright, part of it all. But a couple, I just done a month down at the Hops Garden down at Rostreville, and just the amount of people and the money spent down there, 15 million, and the amount of people that work there, including backpackers and local, old and young, and the contribution it just gives to our valley. And then the on-flow from that, a lot of the people go from there up to Nightingales, who employ 40 people in the shed at full time, and a lot of pickers this time of the year. So they just contribute to a whole range of things and feelings. And yeah, so good luck to all of them, and thank you very much. All right, one more thing, Mr. Mayor. While I'm on the congratulatory trail, I'm just looking over there at Rory Hazeldean, who started down the yard 15 years ago at the age of 23, and as a gardener, and then he moved on into the flying crew, and then works coordinator, and then he went on to acting manager of assets, And whilst he is acting manager of assets, he's now acting director of assets. So I think it reflects not only to Rory but to the organisation that there's still avenues for people from any level.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce, and one more addition to that, not to embarrass Rory, he's not a bad shot with the 22, got rid of all my rabbits at the age of 18.
Did you ask him?
Yes, had my permission, actually use my 22.
I have an obituary. Obituary to Councillor Forsyth on the death of his mother. Condolences. Sad time. And we have to accept our condolences, Councillor Forsyth.
Councillor Forsyth?
Yes, I won't reply to that one, Jan. I'll give you the eulogy to read later on if you like. No, I think congratulations. It seems so long ago now, but Middleford Festival, the organisers of that this year did a fantastic job. And also, not that I got to see any of it because I couldn't get into town here, but Bright Better Days, I believe, was a fantastic festival as well. So congratulations to all those people in the community that actually get behind these things and make them work.
Any further obituaries or congratulations? No? Item 6, declarations of by councillors of conflict of interest. Councillor.
I will flag a conflict of interest, and I can't even say what it is because it's a confidential report. So I'll flag that now.
That report will be discussed by council at the end of this meeting. Question time. Just in relation to question time, please, if you could raise your hand, I will get to you. And if you could, just for our records, obviously some people we actually know who they are, but for the purpose of the exercise, you could just state your name and then ask the question, please. Okay, first, any question? Sorry. Oh, and sorry, and your rule is you step up to the podium. Thank you. Any questions? We'll take the young lady in the middle.
Hi, my name is Belinda Raviani and I have a question to pose to the councillors. So in regards to the Freeburg Bike Trail, we've got a few questions to put to you. First question of the night is, has the Mount Beauty community initiated and put forward any proposals or petitions regarding the Pebble Beach project, or has it been a council initiative?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, like most projects, they are community initiated. So the Mount Beauty project has been a long-term request of that community. We get a lot of requests for our community, and we are, I will have to admit, at times poor, or I would say at times terrible, at prioritising those requests. In the period I've been CEO, we've developed a software tool that prioritises every single project that we have. And I understand we have about 1,000 projects in what we call the pipeline at the moment. It's a tool called Ignite. So the Mount Beauty project has been put forward in the order of 5 to 10 times into that pipeline, as has probably the vast majority of the other 1,000 projects that are in there.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
My name is Estelle Collinson, and it's in relation to the. My name is Estelle Collinson, and it's in relation to the Freeburg Bike Path as well. What numbers have influenced you as council in making the decision to include the Pebble Beach project in this budget?
Again, I'll kind of expand a little on the previous question, and I'll try and talk as frankly as I can. So, something as staff that we recommended to, and I'll talk about the general issue here because otherwise we'll just sort of have a to and fro around a whole heap of questions. A number of years ago, we recognised that we were getting ongoing demands for pathways, footpaths, tracks and trails. We recommended to council that $200,000 per annum for the foreseeable future be allocated in our budget to start to progress those projects. we identified every one of those projects, and I think they order in the number of 150 to 200 projects. Some of them are small little connecting loops, some of them are very big projects like the joining of the existing trail, the existing 15 k's of unsealed section or unconstructed section between Bright and Harriettville. So then what we do is we put forward those 150 to 200 projects to council, and we say we have $200,000 every year for the foreseeable future, and we have probably a few $1 million of trails to construct. And we ask council to prioritise those projects, and they prioritise based on a number of different factors, which typically tend to be things like the value for money of the trail, how much it's going to be used, etc., etc. So, of course, and I can talk about your project because I think that will give you some insight. The Freeburg Trail connecting part that you're talking about, which I understand is from Webster's Lane to the Tonga Gap Road, is positioned at about number 3 or 4 in that project, in that prioritisation list. We continue to refine it. It could be number 2, it could be number 3 by the time it's absolutely locked in. So the simple answer is when you have a list of 200 projects and a finite amount of money, we rely on council to make the decisions as people that are connected to their community and well experienced in making those decisions for the benefit of all of our community. Sorry for the long answer. Hopefully it makes some sense.
I'd just like to add to that. I understand that the petition is quite a number of people. It's not that we have ignored those people in their enthusiasm for that project, but we have to look at the broad picture, and it's not acknowledging those people and their commitment to that particular project. But I think that we have a discussion that we need to look at our projects over the Shire as a whole and then prioritise that. So that may not have answered your question directly, but I wanted to make sure that people understand we do not just disregard a petition like that, and hence, as Mr. Barry has said, it sits quite high, really, in the whole scheme of things on our project pipeline.
So if the decision was made this evening that we weren't able to get into this budget, would there be a recommendation that we could, that you would be willing to prioritise it in the next budget?
So I think, and I'm just trying to recall our recommendation, it was that we would, what we have is we have our $200,000 coming in every year, and we have the cost of every project. And what we've committed to doing in our recommendation is by, I believe, 30 June, to letting you know exactly when we believe your project would be funded. Yeah? So that is a simple table for us to produce, but what the challenge has been is just making sure we don't want to say something that we can't stick to, and if we need to determine, are you priority number 3 or number 4 or number 2, because each one of them has an incremental impact of maybe a year or so in the phasing. So,
as a group, we would like to work with council to do anything that we can.
Absolutely.
To enable that to happen as soon as possible.
And as do we. Can I say, I mean, for us, what we want to do is work through this pipeline as quickly as possible, and that is why we have gone through some of the efforts in this organisation that we have gone through, saving in the order of $4 million, reducing costs, reducing staffing, so we can put more money to working through that pipeline as quickly as we possibly can, because heretofore we were working through that pipeline at the rate, our entire capital works pipeline across the Shire, thousands of people wanting competing projects, and we were delivering them at the rate of about $300,000 or $400,000 a year. Now, fortunately, our discretionary spend orders well into the $3 to $4 million a year, so our capacity to churn through this pipeline, and as I hear myself say the word pipeline, I think it's the buzzword of the moment, so let's just call it a list, churning through the list as quickly as we possibly can.
Thank you. Just a moment. There we go. Just a moment. Mr. Dyer?
My name is Ray Dyer, and my first question is the CEO. We had a meeting earlier this month, which I cancelled. I believe I put in a letter to Tim McCurdy and asked that the next meeting I have with the Mayor and the CEO will be representation from the state government also, because I'm sick and tired of being stonewalled by the Alpine Shire. Are you prepared, Mr. CEO, to meet with me, a representative from the state government, in the near future, very shortly?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely, Mr. Dyer. More than happy. We'll await the state government to forge forward.
Will you look into making sure this meeting happens very shortly? Not look into the state government looking into it. Get it up and running. Are you prepared to do that ASAP?
Mr. Dyer, I have seen a copy of your letter and you have requested it. I think you have also the responsibility to contact Mr. McCurdy, who we're happy to sit down with Mr. McCurdy, yourself, to work out an appropriate time with him, and we always try our hardest to work in with that schedule. You've requested the meeting. I think it's your responsibility to organise a time with Mr. McCurdy, and then we will try and fit in as best we can. We have worked very hard to try and meet your requests, and so you've got to try and do a bit of work with it too.
I've already spoken to Mr. McCurdy last month, and I'm waiting on his reply. Which
Thank you, Mr. Then once we receive his reply, thank you, then we will...
No, I'm asking you, are you prepared to meet with the state government also with me?
Yes, we are. I've just said that. I've just said that.
ASAP, not leave it 6 months down the track.
Because
I believe...
You are not listening to me, sir. Listen to what I say. I have just said that I and the CEO will meet with you and Mr. McCurdy at an appropriate time in the near future when we hear from yourself or Mr. McCurdy as to an appropriate date and place.
Have you spoken to Mr. McCurdy?
No, I have not.
I'm not even talking about Mr. McCurdy, I'm talking a representation from the state
I believe
government.
Mr.
It could be
McCurdy.
anybody.
I'm not going to go it any further. If you have someone to represent State Council, please notify us of that person and the appropriate details, and then we'll...
So you're not going to do anything about it? You're
No,
going to
sir.
do it all?
That's your request. You can do it. Thank you.
That's how council works. Thank you very much.
Lady in black. Thank you, Mary.
Mary Pike from the Kiwa Valley Community Association. Just to let everybody in this meeting know that we're definitely interested in the extension to Pebble Beach, and I did actually put in a question on notice after our last committee meeting, and it wasn't addressed tonight. I just wonder if it had not been received. It related to Pebble Beach and budget.
My apologies,
Yeah.
we don't have that question on those.
No.
to my knowledge.
I think tonight's agenda and the other discussions probably answers the question, but I did send one in, and we are definitely interested in that extension.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm keen that we don't create this as a Pebble Beach Freeburg trail competition, because I can assure you it's a multi-pronged sort of 1 to 200 plus project competition, unfortunately.
Mr. Mayor,
Can I give a bit of background?
Yes.
This all came about a number of years ago, 7 years ago, and it was also highlighted in a cycling plan for Mount Beauty that there was no suitable cycling area on a flat ground for the residents or for people and visitors in Mount Beauty. So it's not a program, the Pebble Beach project is not a project that's been mysteriously plucked out of this year. It has been around since I've been on council. So, you know, that's how long it's taken to get this one up, and I hope that we're not going to take that long to get the next one up.
Thanks for the local explanation there. Are there any further questions? Sorry, Mr. No, I do have some questions on notice, which I haven't forgotten. Mr. Dyer, you have one more question.
This is to Director of Assets or Acting Director of Assets, Rory Hazelton. Why is it that Queen Street in Myrtleford hasn't had any white lines on it for quite a few years? We've had quite a few festivals around that area. Not just only Queen Street, right around Myrtleford, the white lines.
I think Mr. Hazelden has an answer to that.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Ray, we acknowledge that, and the line marking program is due in the next 4 weeks, which will include Queen Street and some of the other areas around Myrtleford and some of the other roads around the Shire as well.
What about underprinting the trees around Myrtleford? They're an absolute disgrace.
Well, I'm sure that Mr. Hazelden's crew will attend to that. Thank you. Do you have another question, Mr. Dyer?
Only about the trees that are an absolute disgrace around Myrtleford.
That's a statement, thank you.
Yes. No. Can something be done about the trees?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be part of the maintenance. Thank you. That was me.
Action replay, Mr.
Action
Mayor.
replay. Very good. 7 seconds. Thank you, Madam. There is a further question somewhere. If I have missed anybody, no further. There are some questions on notice.
No, they're not. They're yours.
They're mine.
It's the other flag.
Just like home. The questions on notice are from Kim Morrells. Could you put the following questions to the applicable persons in readiness for council meeting on tonight's date? Are residents' rates calculated in proportion to the capital funds spent by council in their respective towns? For example, are residents' rates cheaper in Freeburg than, say, Bright, given that more funding is given to that town? If so, what is the proportion spent in Freeburg? If not, how is spending by town justified? Mr. CEO.
Mr. Mayor, a very complex question. I'll try and address it as simplistically as possible and try not to sound like a bureaucrat as I do so. Rates across the Shire are uniform, although in rural areas we have a rural differential which is in the order of 70%. So farm properties pay 70% of what metropolitan properties or urban properties pay, I should better say. The next question, and the next component of the question, I guess, is how is funding distributed across the Shire? And council tries to service every community equally, and I'm sure if you question every community, they will see that they get less back than they pay in, they will believe that they get less back than they pay in rates. But when we look at the dynamics of how our rates flow, the reality is rates that are raised in urban areas flow to rural areas and to smaller townships. So for example, Mount Beauty has more rates spent in it and the Kiwa Valley has more rates spent in it than it raises. Likewise, rural areas have more rates spent there than are raised. And that is a factor of the fact that there is low population density in rural areas and there are high volumes of road networks, and roads is where the vast majority of our spend ultimately goes to. And an example strikes me recently in Freeburg, where we, I think, moved quickly to replace the Freeburg Bridge at a cost of in or around $300,000, and the entire rate take for Freeburg in that area was about $35,000 per annum. So you can see there in one project alone it takes about 9 years to pay it back. So I hope what I'm trying to show is this kind of very simplistic view that rates move from urban areas to rural areas, and council tries to balance that spend as best they can, where the areas with higher population density subsidise those with lower. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. Question 2. We are aware the completed project of continuing the rail trail from Germantown through Freeburg will cost in the vicinity of $200,000, which has been allocated in previous budget. How does council justify a blowout of the previous phase and consequently the halting of the Freeburg phase? Mr Hazelby?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So stage one of the Bright Harritville trial was 5 kilometres from the Bright end and 5 kilometres from the Harriettville end. This was a $1 million project which was fully funded and was cost just $2,853 over that $1 million, so pretty much came in on budget. There possibly has been some misunderstanding though with a bridge that North East Water constructed for the pipeline that led people to believe that the trial probably should have gone further than what it was supposed to for stage one.
So just to be clear, Mr Mayor, there was no intention to extend the trail as part of the scope of that project beyond where it goes to, and the project was $1 million project and cost us $1 million at $1,002,000 to construct.
Thank you. And the third question, if council is to reject the project for the next budget, referring to the Germantown Freeburg one, would they consider using gravel as an interim measure and tarring it at a later stage? Mr Hazelby?
Yes, this is possible, but generally it's not considered good practice because obviously it's less economical to come back and I guess put the path back into an appropriate shape to seal it.
What would the cost saving be?
So the cost savings are approximately 25%, so obviously if you're looking at approximately 200,000, so there's 50,000.
Thank you.
So can I just ask a question on that, just for clarity? If you put in a gravel path, it would cost 150. Then if we go back later on when we want to do the proper one and seal it proper, it's going to cost another 200 on top then to do it, or not?
No, there'll just be an extra component to, I guess, bring the path up to a suitable finish to seal it. So
okay.
It's just going to be extra, but yeah, definitely not.
So if we can't, if the budget to do this section is say 200,000, and if we stick a gravel one in for 150 and then have to go back later, the actual budget could blow out to say 250.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, approximately.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ms Morrow wasn't present tonight. Yes. Thank you. Are you satisfied with? Okay, thank you. I don't think there's any further questions, so we'll move on. Presentation of reports by officers. Chief Executive Officer Dave Barry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Every month I report contracts that I've signed under my delegation of $150,000 including GST, and this month I have signed for our curb renewal programme, the details of which are included in your agenda to be noted by Council. Thank you.
So moved. Second.
All in favour? Carried. Item 8.2.1, Director of Corporate Performance, Trevor Britton, the February 2016 Audit Committee meeting. Trevor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. So the Audit Committee meet quarterly. They met last in February, fairly standard sort of meeting. There's actually 7 committee recommendations there. That's from 3 to 9, and my recommendation is that they're adopted.
Councillor Federal. Seconded. Councillor Forsyth. Let's just Councillor Farrell.
I'd just like to thank John Cantor for his services.
We haven't got there yet. That's the next report.
Sorry, my apologies. No further comment.
Thank you. Councillor Forsyth.
No, have read through. Sorry.
Have read through this. No, just seconding.
Right. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. 8.2.2, appointment of independent audit committee members.
I'll move. I'll move.
Councillor Farrell, seconder. Councillor Von Arx. Councillor Farrell.
Now may I thank John Cantor. My apologies, I was a bit ahead of myself. I'd like to thank John Cantor for the services he did for the audit committee for how many years, Trevor, was it?
Decades, I would say.
Decades, okay. He was an asset to the audit committee and he'll be
And a chair
missed.
for
Chair.
quite some time.
Okay, fantastic. And also to thank Nala Kane too for her services for the last 4 years. And it's good to see that we've appointed 2 new women onto the audit committee. Thank you.
Councillor Von Arx.
I will make a comment. I note that Councillor Farrell mentioned that there were 2 women. That's fine, but we're an equal opportunity people here.
I understand that, but it's just really good to see.
I just feel that it doesn't matter whether they're women or men, as long as they're the best person for the job.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Recommendations that Jane Shepherd and Sinead Ryan be appointed to the Audit Committee for a term of 3 years commencing from the 1st of May 2016 pending satisfactory completion of pre-appointment paperwork, and the retiring committee members John Cantor and Nada Kane be acknowledged and thanked for their service. All those in favour? Carried. Um, 8.3.1 petition proposed extension of the rail trail from Germantown to Freeburg. Rory Hazelman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to inform council and provide a response to the petition for the proposed extension, as we've been discussing. So the petition was received on the 15th of February 2016, and just to reiterate some points that have been discussed that council should consider. Council recently completed 2 5-kilometre stretches of the shared trail between Bright and Harrieville with the $1 million state government funding, and council has made a commitment to invest approximately $200,000 annually across the Shire on an initial 4-year period. The preliminary cost estimate for the project is $210,000, and that's a 4.3 kilometre extension. Council has not made a commitment to complete the proposed trail, however it will be considering the draft council budget for the upcoming financial year. The recommendations are that council note the petition for a proposed extension of the rail trail from Germantown to east border of Freeburg. Note that a proposed extension of the shared trail from Germantown to Webster's Lane is listed in council's strategic project pipeline. Advise the main proponent that council's $200,000 annual commitment to new paths trails is proposed to be allocated to other higher priority projects in the 2016-17 budget. Advise the main proponent by the 30th of June 2016 of the most likely period that the proposed project, the extension of the shared trail, will be delivered, noting that project delivery into the longer term future is subject to many factors.
So moved. Second.
Just a moment. Councillor Von Arx and Councillor Pearce. Councillor Von Arx.
Yes, I understand the people in the gallery, your concern about getting your little patch done as well. Unfortunately, as council and as councillors, there are a lot of projects around the Shire that we'd love to complete. I've been on council now for 11 years, and Happy Valley Creek in Myrtleford has been touched, and I sit there and tear my hair out thinking, when is this going to be done? But that's life, and we do have to prioritise. I do actually want to address the question about the equity of the money being spent in the areas. I know that since being on council, it's always been a them and us situation. They always get more than we do. Mount Beauty says we get more, and then people over the side say, look, Mount Beauty gets more. and it goes on and on and on. But please believe me, in the time I've been on council, it has been so fair, it's been unbelievable. It just falls out that way. We don't look at an area and say, oh, Myrtleford must have 300,000 spent this year or whatever it is. It just happens to be that way. So you will get your path, believe me. It may not be this year, but I'm sure you'll be getting it in the very near future.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce?
Yeah, I'd like to concur with Councillor Von Arx on that matter, and hope that the Mount Beauty stays on the table, change of government councillor this year. But looking close. But having said that, I say to the people of Germantown and Freeburg, don't sit quietly on your hands. Keep active, because it can slip or it can jump a notch. So keep at it.
Thank you. Any further comment? Sorry, Councillor Roper.
I'd like to thank the people that actually went to the effort of putting in a petition to see what it is, and I think there's also an opportunity to politic some of the state politicians, because we all know there's an election coming up soon, and realistically the whole trail between Bright and Harrickville needs to be done. We recognise that. If you have been successful at petitioning council, start petitioning state ministers to see if we can get some funding.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Councillor Farrell?
I'd like to reiterate my fellow councillors down here as well too. I mean, really push to lobby state government. You never know unless you give it a go, and just really try, because I mean, I personally would love to ride the full distance. I'm sure we all would, and it'd be great to see sort of a ribbon cutting ceremony when it's all completed. So please, I urge you to push state government. Thank you.
Councillor Forsyth?
I think we're all in on this one. So I just wanted to say that, as Councillor Roper said, the funding for this can come from state government. This organisation applies for every amount of funding it can get. If state government or if the local politicians hear from the actual people on the ground, then it bubbles up to the surface that much quicker, because we apply for funding every week. So coming from I don't know, have you got an organisation? Have you got yourself a name? Have you got all of those things? Fabulous. All right. But the only other thing that I would like to assure you of, and that's kind of been said tonight, but just take this away with you, is that your project is in what we call the pipeline. All right, and it's very near the top. And as the CEO said, there might be 1,000 things happening around the Shire that need funding. If you're number 3 or number 4, that means it's going to happen much sooner than anything else. So take that as heart, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Bynes.
I just want to say that congratulations to the small community of Freeburg on having the foresight to come forward and say, we want. Too many people sit in the background and say, we wish we had this and wish we had that. But it's great to see a small community group come forward, so well done, and I'm sure we'll be working with you in the future.
Yeah. We'll take the recommendation to the vote. Those for the recommendation? It is carried. Contract CT1 6009 Alpine Events Park, Hero Trail Design and Construction. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Good night, Mr. Dove.
All right.
Who's dealing with this one?
That's me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So this report relates to the award of the contract for the management of the design and construction of the Hero Trail element, which is part of the Alpine Events Park project, which is obviously part funded, 50% funded through the National Stronger Regions Fund. So the objective of the Hero Trail is to deliver a high quality mountain bike trail, and it's connected to both Mystic Park and Pioneer Park as well. It's similar, I guess, similar in style to that of the Epic Trail at Mount Buller. The direct award of the contract to ACP to manage the design and construction of the Hero Trail as a sole source is founded on the fact that ACP is a financial partner in the project, and an agreement between Council and ACP at the time of the funding application. So at this time it was agreed between Council and ACP that they would be a financial partner. $200,000 of the total budget is directed to ACP to manage the trail construction element, and that's made up of $175,000 in cash and $25,000 in kind support from the Alpine Cycle Club. ACP is part of that project group, which involves HVP, Hancock's Victorian Plantations, the Bright Football and Netball Club, and the Alpine Cycle Club. So ACP is well positioned to deliver this project, as it's the land manager, a financial partner, and it's got a good understanding, as well as sand governance arrangements and its own procurement policy similar to that of ours. So the recommendation is to approve a procedural exemption from Council's procurement policy for the procurement of the management of the design and construction of the Hero Trail. Award contract number CT16009, Hero Trail Design and Construction to Alpine Community Plantation for the lump sum price of $175,000 excluding GST. And note that the contract award is subject to the signing of the funding agreement between the Federal Department of Infrastructure and Regional Development and Alpine Shire Council for the Alpine Events Park project.
So moved.
Second.
Councillor Von Arx, Councillor Farrell. Councillor Von Arx.
Thank you, Rory. Look, this is a fantastic project, and working with the Alpine Community Plantation, that means Hancock's and everyone involved, it is a great win for us, and it sort of adds to this Alpine, what do we call it, Alpine Events Park project. The one thing I do want in this project is a conference centre though, so we'll be pushing that for a while. But congratulations, I think this is a great outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell.
I'd also like to thank you very much too for the outcome of this project, and I'm sure the Alpine Cycling Club members, which I think there's about 200 now, will be absolutely rapt with the idea that this is going ahead. All the trails through that HVP plantations are brilliantly well marked, professionally made, and fantastic.
Thank you. Any further comment, Councillor Pearce?
Yeah, just quickly, thanks Mr Mayor. I again concur with my colleagues, and just what a great precinct it is down there at Pioneer Park, with football, tennis, the horsey people events, etc. It's just an enormous thing, and now with cycling growing as quickly as it is in the area, to have this underground approach into the park and set it up for another big usage, I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. Any further comment? Thank you. I'll just briefly comment that this is an expansion of that Alpine Events Park, or part of that project, which is actually regional, and I think we need to keep that in context, that it's not just one particular area that's going to benefit from it. This is a regional project, and this is just building on that in small steps, but in a positive way. Let's take the vote on that. Thank you. All those in favour of the recommendation? Carried. Thank you, Rory, for that.
Yeah, I noted we allowed him to read the full report too, which was lovely.
It was.
Normally we cut in and you don't get to finish.
Yes, that has been noted from time to time, Councillor Pearce, yes. 8.4.1 Alpine Amendments C51, Review of Heritage Overlay. I think Council might want to hear from Heather.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to keep it short. This report is a recommendation to commence a planning scheme amendment to incorporate about 105 properties into Council's heritage overlay. These properties are across the Shire from Myrtleford to Bright to Wandie and the Kiewa Valley. They are a result of a heritage study that was funded by the state government up to 10 years ago, completed in 2004 and 2008. And at that time, in 2008-2009, we did notify the owners of these properties that this was the proposal and received fairly positive feedback from those owners. The heritage study did recommend a number of other things, which is not progressing at this stage. It is just these individual properties spread amongst the Shire. Councillors have a list of those properties, and I do have a folder here with the citations, which is the reason for their heritage importance, as well as photographs of those properties. This process to be gone through is they will be advertised and each property owner will be notified, and you'll note in the appendix to this report a question and answer page so that people get to understand what it would mean if a property was in a heritage overlay. Just for the benefit of councillors and the gallery, a heritage overlay is identifies properties of local significance. The State Heritage Register is different, and that is items of state significance. So the heritage overlay is by no means as strict, for want of a better word, so it does not stop properties being redeveloped, additions, and it tends to only be about the exterior of buildings rather than the interior, unless the interior is specifically identified in the citation. And from memory, in this case, I don't think any interiors have been included in any of the citations. The process is that we would seek authorisation from the Minister to commence the amendment. It would then go on public display, and as I said, individual property owners would be specifically notified and then come back to Council. If any individual property owner does object, Council has the ability to remove an individual property from the amendment at that stage. So the recommendation is that under Section 8A of the Planning and Environment Act, we seek the Minister for Planning to authorise.
I so move, actually. It's all there in front of us.
Yep, I'll second.
Councillor Pearce.
Just briefly, it can be a good thing. I like the idea that they can apply to be left out of the system if they can prove it's for good reasoning. I wonder how much it costs Council to implement and control it. But I'm asking you probably, Heather.
Look, the implementation is relatively simple. It'll be done in-house by our strategic planner, and then the implementation of it through the planning scheme is as we do at the moment. If you look through the list, a lot of the items are not ones that are likely to be developed anyway. They're about recognising.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thanks, Heather. Thank you.
Councillor Farrell.
I'd like to thank Claire Country for her work doing all the listing. I actually saw that sort of some old mine shafts have been listed in walls and buildings, and it's just fantastic to keep our heritage alive and well, and it's great. We've got to keep all that as a local significance, and I just think it could also be a tourism opportunity for people to go and have a look at them. I understand, could you correct me, that there's a possibility of a free consultation if people want to know about is that right, Heather?
Yep. So Council does employ a heritage advisor, which is partially funded by the state, and he's an architect and he attends on demand, but probably averages about every 6 weeks through the year, and provides free advice to property owners should they wish to extend or modify, usually a house, to enable them to get the appropriate permits.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor Roper.
I'd counsel my fellow colleagues to vote against these recommendations. I think it's another level or an overlay that isn't perhaps required in our Shire. I think that there is a way of doing this apart from it being overly bureaucratic and I'm not convinced that this is the right way for us to go with the Alpine Shire. And I would ask my fellow councillors to treat this item in the negative.
Thank you. Any further comment?
Yes,
just a moment, Councillor Bonarks.
Just a question. I noticed in the list there's quite a few churches that have been mooted. I know in this day and age a lot of churches are being sold and made into houses. Does this restrict that?
No. It would certainly have some impact on the design. We've had two churches in Wandie in the last 5 years, three that have been transformed into homes, and certainly the people that have bought them they bought them for the reason that it is a heritage building, but of course they want to make it livable. Certainly our attitude to that is heritage must live, otherwise you lose it anyway. So they must be able to be adapted to a new use, and that's certainly what we work towards.
Thank you.
And the heritage overlay doesn't restrict that.
Thank you.
Councillor Forsyth.
Yes, just a query in the timing, page 20. At this time of the year, if one of these properties was mine and I happened to be holidaying in Queensland and I only found out about it, can we guarantee that we're going to be able to contact everybody?
We will comply with the legislation, and we will be writing to addresses that we have within our rates. There's not much else we can do. We can only notify and comply with the notification period.
So say I came back on the 2nd of June and found that this was a situation I didn't want my property to have this overlay, could I then put in an objection?
Not if it's gone to a June council meeting for...
Exactly. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask just the actual intent of having the heritage overlay? I know you've put it in some words, but I'd like to go deeper than that.
Okay, so Council's job as planning authority is to comply with the Planning Environment Act, which requires Council to preserve heritage of Council, hence the reason we got money from the state government to prepare the heritage studies back in the mid-2000s. That's a legislative requirement, so that's one, but that's not, I know that's not what you're asking, but you need to be aware of that. Heritage is important for every shire, so in the report you'll see that it can be an economic benefit, but it's also the intrinsic value of protecting our heritage for future generations. And so it's an education thing, it's a community, people want to be able to go to where they got married or had their 21st birthday, so it's a social community. In a lot of cases it's also an architectural issue, so it's that the architecture of the building is important and should be conserved for future generations. So under the Borough Charter, which is the guiding document for all heritage in Australia, there's 5 different things that buildings or places can be listed for heritage importance, and that's social, community, architectural. It can be technical, so things like mining sites or industrial buildings that have been built with some sort of technical innovation. Mount Beauty as a town, Councillor Roper probably doesn't want to hear this, but it's probably the most intact planned town in Australia.
Apart from Canberra.
Small town, sorry, industrial, planned town for an industrial purpose. So there are all those reasons why we should be protecting our heritage. And in Alpine Shire, we're pretty light on in what we've got in our current heritage overlay.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce? Oh, no further comment? I don't
No,
understand. Councillor Pearce? The right to reply to any of this?
No.
Okay.
Let it ride.
Is that all right? We'll take it to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation as read? 1, 2, 3.
Casting vote, Mr Mayor.
You have to ask
It's a casting vote, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. And I'll vote in favour of the recommendation. Sorry, against? Against? Well, there was 3 for, there'll be 3 against.
Yeah, but if the division was called, we wouldn't know who was against. Up the division?
Division is called.
Councillor Von Art's for.
Councillor Farrell for.
Councillor Janis for. Against?
Councillor Forsyth.
Is this a new thing?
No. But it's working.
Do we have to read her name out now to say Darryl Pearce again?
You can read that one.
Councillor Pearce is against and Councillor Roper is against. And as I have the casting vote, I am for the recommendation. So the recommendation is carried.
Yeah.
8.4.2, Dinner Plan Advisory Committee meetings and recommendations.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, we can. Councillor Pearce.
It's pretty
Councillor
much,
Forsyth. Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
it's pretty much straightforward what's there. The most interesting part I see there is Cowling Huskies to be endorsed to operate their sled tour. So other than that, I'm happy with it. Or with that, I'm happy with it.
Thank you. Councillor Forsyth.
Yes, I'll just concur with Councillor Pearce. Great to see dog sleds up there. Are we going to have to put in little posts with...
Already got
Got them? Fantastic. Do the kangaroos know how to use them? Do the kangaroos know how to use them?
Any further comment?
Yes, may I?
Yes, Councillor.
I'd also
Councillor
like to
Farrell.
agree that it's good to see the stage dog tour operators in situ again. I gather they weren't there last year, is that correct?
They were there.
Oh, they were there last
It
year.
was a different operator.
Different operator, okay. Well, it's fantastic to see that and all good.
Further comment? Councillor Pearce.
Oh, just to say that most of the other stuff's on the board up there at the moment. It's ongoing, so yeah.
I'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Yeah. 8.4.3 Building Resilience. This is a report for Heather.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Last year, following the 2013 Harrietville fires, Council was successful in receiving a grant to assist our businesses, primarily in Harrietville but across the Shire, in building resilience for not just natural disasters, so recovery from natural disasters, but also issues within a business, be it a partner perhaps dying or being ill, to loss of power or other sorts of unexpected issues that would impact on a business's economic viability. Probably unfortunately, it wasn't taken up as well as we would like by business operators across the Shire, but those that did participate certainly were happy with the outcomes, and there is still the availability of the consultant that carried out the work to work with those business operators to complete their resilience plans moving into the future. So the recommendation is to note that this project's completed and there are some key achievements, and be aware that this project and the opportunity presented to business across the Alpine Shire to develop the plan to cope with any disruptions to their normal business was given and widely sought. And it
No, so moved, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Seconded.
Second.
Councillor Barmarks. All those, any comment?
Yes.
Councillor Pearce.
Well, I'm hearing Heather saying it was a shame that it wasn't better taken up, more people that did it, but cost of 72,000 of government money, which is ours anyway, and 20 odd of ours. It's an expensive expenditure, so hopefully, as Heather, if it came up again, a lot more people would be involved with it.
Thank you, Councillor Barmarks.
Yeah, I'm very surprised at the lack of take-up, simply because we've been through some really bad times, 2009 fires, floods, and then 2012 fires, and businesses were hard hit. And I think we tend to bury our heads in the sand and think it's not going to happen again. And businesses really do suffer at times like that, and they need to have some kind of plan, not to rely on council all the time to bail them out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor Roper.
How many people had attending?
I think it was 8.
Wow. So this is what concerns me about councils accepting grants, especially when there's a rather large in-kind contribution from us as well too. So I think this is a really good lesson for council to not accept every grant that comes our way.
CEO will comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Councillor Roper, and certainly we've had some internal conversations. This money and this grant was received quite a while ago. I'm thinking 2.5 years or so ago, maybe 3 years ago. So certainly not something that I do the division as quick as everyone else, and not something that we would be rushing into again.
And I'll certainly add that the reason that it's taken so long is we work very hard to try and encourage businesses to participate.
Can I offer an alternative recommendation to number 3, or can I ask if the mover and the second would entertain a 3 for this recommendation?
Councillor Pearce?
Yeah.
I suppose we want to know what it is.
That in future, before council accepts grants I'm not quite sure how to say it, but we need to actually remind ourselves to actually look at what the cost to us could to be, and is it worthwhile. I'm not doubting the worthwhileness of the project. What worries me is how many people actually did it and what the cost to council was. And that's an argument. Or when you put it into perspective, that 70,000 is a fair chunk of that bit of track at Freebury, doesn't it?
Yes, indeed. So I suppose one matter we have to consider, Councillor Roper, is that this is a legacy that I feel very confident under the present administration would be looked at very carefully before we took up that offer of a loan, or not of a loan, of a grant, and then there would have to be some business case study done on that.
I think there's been an amendment to the motion. I don't know whether Councillor Pearce is okay with the third point.
I'd like something a little bit more what he means by what can we do with the.
This report is we're just noting the completion of this project. I'm not in agreement with the number 3 being put in there, but I do believe that totally agree with you. But I don't think this is the place to put it in. Maybe we need to be looking at it with the CEO at a later date.
Okay, so having heard comments from my colleagues left and right of me, I think we just leave it out, Peter, and vote for it, but at the same time, in future, be aware of what we could be putting ourselves into when we're spending 24,000 of council money, at $3,000 for each person who was there, plus another 72 state funding, which is ours as well anyway. Could be better well spent, maybe a big party to get over it. That's it.
So we'll move, sorry, Councillor, Mr. Barrett.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I mean, again, I'll probably just re-emphasise a similar point, which is that I think we look through everything now through the lens of outcome focused. What are we delivering? How much is it costing? And this is one of those ones that we will use as an example of perhaps the way we used to do business to contrast with the way we do business now. Hopefully, I'm making that.
You want me to reply to that, Mr. Mayor? Yes, I see that. The way we run things now as opposed to 3 years ago. A lot more thought is put into it, and I'm sure it wouldn't happen again.
Thank you. I think we've had a fair amount of discussion on that, and I'm sure that officers have received the message. We'll take a vote on the recommendation as written. All those in favour? Carried. Assemblies of councils, item 9.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I'll vote.
Any comment, Councillor Von Oaks? No. Councillor Farrell? No. Go to the vote on that one. All in favour? Thank you. Presentation of reports by delegates. The summary of the presentation of reports by delegates for March 2016 being Councillor Farrell.
Seconded.
Councillor Forsyth. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Item 11, general business. From my left, Councillor Roper. Nil.
Negative.
Councillor Pearce. Negative. Councillor Von Oaks. Negative.
All quiet.
Forsyth. Councillor Farrell.
Yes, thank you. The Brighton Museum requested funding for general maintenance of $4,500. Has this been noted and is it in the budget?
Councillor.
Can someone answer that, please?
Director of Assets, Rory.
Yes, it's been put into the budget process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you. Item 12, motions for which notice have previously been given. Nil. 13, reception and reading of petitions. The Bright Sports Centre. The Bright Sports Centre has extended hours petition. This petition has been received. Is anyone talking to no? Trevor.
Yep, I can talk to this, Mr. Mayor. So we've received a petition to extend the opening hours of the Bright Sports Centre to 7 days a week for improved access. So that would be, I guess they're requesting that 24/7 access via a swipe card kind of system, and also lowering membership and usage fees. So I guess both of those principles are things that officers would agree with, and no doubt council do as well. So it's a great idea. It's just around how do we do that. So we've received the petition. Normal process would be to have that sit on the table for a month. I'm suggesting that we can deal with that at this council meeting. So I've got 5 recommendations. First one, we have to actually receive the petition and resolve to deal with it at this meeting. And then thirdly, that we months in the strategic projects pipeline and the budget. And then that we review the fees as part of the budget process, and then advise the proponent of the petition that we're doing those things.
Also move second.
Councillor Pearce first and Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, well, we've heard a bit about this petition, and we've been spoken to by Rachel Quarrell there last week. Spoke well, and I think it's all pretty fair what's down there that we're going to investigate, and I hope good result comes from it.
Councillor Farrell.
I would agree with Councillor Pearce, and I understand that there's quite a few sports centres around, even in Wodonga and Albury, that actually remain open all night. But I gather the time for Saturday is 10 p.m, is that correct? They want to have it open till?
Well, they're asking for 24/7, 7 days a week.
Right.
Yeah, but there'd be planning restrictions, I would imagine, Heather. But we need to look at those things.
And through you, Mr Mayor, I think in the report we are suggesting to limit that times because the facility is in a residential area. So we are notionally suggesting times of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. during weekdays, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on a Saturday, and 9 to 8 on a Sunday. Obviously, it's not definitive that those will be the times, but that is reflective that we probably don't want people in there at 3 a.m. Making noise on a weekday.
Thank you.
Question as to cost for that system.
I think that is mentioned in the report as well.
$25,000.
We're confident of delivering well within that.
And again, Mr Mayor, I think something that we always try and do is drive down the cost. A good example of a technology purchase in recent times is these microphones that sit in front of you, of which we were quoted a similar figure of $25,000, and we ended up spending $1,500 on them. Or our camera system here, which has no ongoing operating costs and cost us about $3,000 to put in, when other councils are spending $20,000 and $30,000 a year to run a similar system. So we will try and drive that cost down in the technology space. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce, anything further?
No, thanks.
We'll take it to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation? Sorry, can I just have that again, please? Carried. There is one other document for sealing which relates to the, this is a late item, it's not on the agenda, I apologise for that, but at the time we received it, it is important that this document is dealt with tonight. And Councillor Pearce,
I'll second.
Councillor Pearce and Farrell is very busy. It's to do
Lakeview Childcare Centre.
Could you expand it all on that, Rory?
So that's obviously for the current works that are happening. So it was the contract for the for those works, and they're due to be completed fairly soon.
Yeah. Okay, go to the vote on that. Those in favour, we'll sign that. Thank you. Yeah.
Also move we go into confidential business.
Councillor Bonark's move, we go to confidential business. Seconded.
Yes, I'll second it.
Councillor Farrell. Yes, so as is a confidential meeting, please note that Councillor Forsyth, this is a matter that he has previously declared a conflict of interest and is will leave at 8:15.
Sorry, you're going to mention the main meeting.
Just before you go, the main meeting is in Mount Beauty.
Yes.
Confirmed. Okay, so all those people who want to go to Mount Beauty, it's a wonderful town, please come. They've good team Vicky's over there. Have a look at the heritage over there.
Shop the local shops.
The councillors, thank you. Thank you for those attending. And we will